Good afternoon. Welcome to the Wyoming State Treasurer's Office presentation for the new deposit process. My name is Erica Legursky. I'm the Director of Finance for the Treasurer's Office. Today, what we'd like to talk to you about is that the Treasurer's Office is implementing a new process for deposits. Part of the reason that we're doing this is for convenience. We're hoping that for state agencies that there will be a convenience for you of having longer time to process your deposits and also access to view your own accounts. Another reason for this process is cash flows. There was a letter that you will receive from those of your participants that went to the live session. They got a letter that was sent out about 6 months ago from Auditor Cloud and also Treasurer Gordon, just talking about the importance of cash flows. So we're trying to do this to implement that, hoping that by giving agencies more access into their accounts and longer time frame to go to the banks, that will improve these cash flows. The new deposit process will consist of 2 phases. Phase 1 is bank deposits, which we'll talk about today. Phase 2 is submitting documents electronically to the State Treasurer's Office. This is a process that's going to happen in early fall, so we will get together with you and have another presentation at that time. The presentation that I'm following today is the presentation that I did for the live meetings as well. Those meetings did not take the whole 2 hours, and we did have some breaks in between. So this probably will not take 2 hours, but we do want to have time for questions. So for those of you who are on this website, you can submit those questions via the comment boxes below. Introductions, like I said, my name is Erica Legursky from the Wyoming State Treasurer's Office. We do have some staff here that is helping support those and answering those questions if you have any, and then we will have a Q&A session at the end. Like I said, this presentation, I did not tweak it from the presentations earlier, so this was just some housekeeping as far as where the restrooms and drinks were located for the live presentation. The agenda for today that we'll go over, I alluded to some packets. Those of you who do not receive packets today and did not have anyone attending the sessions, if you'd please send us an email to STO Deposits and we can get you that packet information. We will also have some of that information posted on our website after the broadcast. We're going to be talking today about banking services, changes to deposit processes, types of deposits, deposit workflow, bank reports, deposit corrections. I'll do a little demo for Wells Fargo just to show the ease of getting into their accounts. The main document that we're changing on our site is the WOLFS 101 document, not the CR document or the CR posting in WOLFS. We'll have some housekeeping items. I'll allude to phase 2 within the presentation, but I will just kind of recap that at the end. And then we are looking at doing a change to the returned item processing and wanted to get some feedback from you on that via our survey. In the packets that you will be receiving or should have been receiving, there is a packet for everyone that included a cash management letter from the auditor and the treasurer. There are system requirements for the Wells Fargo CEO software. We have not had any agencies that have had any significant problems with system requirements, but decided to put that in your packet just for further reference for you and your IT staff. There will be a copy of the presentation out on the website after this broadcast. One person from your agency should have received in the live meetings a packet that had a cover letter with account number information in it. You should have received deposit slips and also deposit bags or staged coach bags. Again, if you didn't have anybody who participated in the live broadcast, please contact our office and we will get those to you. We had a RFP that went out for our banking services that went into effect in January. The result of that was for us to retain Wells Fargo Bank. A new, more efficient process of making deposits is what we are looking to implement. What we're looking at doing is giving agencies access to their own accounts, which will, again, as I had said, provide more transparency. Agencies going to the bank or having desktop scanners, we will hope that will be an ease for you. As we know, sometimes getting to us at 2020 carry is a little difficult. And then with our new RFP that we have implemented with Wells Fargo, STO has a courier service that here in the near future will no longer be utilized. Changes to the deposit process. What we are wanting and asking agencies to do is for agencies to go to their local Wells Fargo branch and not drop off the deposits to STO's Dropbox at 2020 Cary. Most agencies have been assigned their own bank account. This was determined based on the types of deposits and the volumes that you had. Some agencies will be assigned new account numbers. Some will be commingled or consolidated with others. We've taken into consideration, like it said on their deposit types and volumes. For those agencies that currently had a separate account where they received ACHs and wires, we tried really hard not to change those account numbers, but the accounts that would be changed is if they had an ACH and wire account number and then they deposited checks and cash into a separate account number, we're going to have all of those commingled to where now they're just depositing everything into that one account that was originally their ACH deposit account. By doing this into one account, it will enable all agencies to see their own bank deposits. When we think of bank deposits in the Treasurer's Office, we think of three types of deposits. There's bank deposits, which consist of cash, coin, loose checks, any items that won't scan if you're currently using a desktop scanner or would like to use a desktop scanner, and then foreign currency items. Desktop deposits are deposits that are used using a desktop scanner, and then we have electronic items that consist of ACH, credit cards, and wires. For bank deposits, we are asking that all agencies take their deposits directly to the bank. This can happen right away. We will have some timing sequences in here as far as what's going to be happening right away, what's going to be happening July 1st, and then what's going to be happening in the early fall. So taking deposits to the bank or starting to use desktop scanners is something that can happen right away and that we're encouraging agencies to do before July 1. We just ask that you contact our office via STO deposits and just let us know when you would like to start taking your deposits to the bank. If you take your deposit to the bank, you will need a deposit slip for all items, cash and checks that are taken to the bank. Large deposits will need to be placed in a deposit bag that we will provide to you. And anything that is in a plastic bag will need to be taken inside. That usually consists of cash, coin, and checks. Items that will not process via a desktop scanner, usually that consists of money orders. Not all money orders, but some money orders do have problems being processed. And if you have checks where people write in purple ink, green ink, red ink, those don't seem to like to scan. So those may be items to where you would have to take those to the bank. As we talk about desktop scanners, we'll talk about the quality of the image. If you have a check that just won't scan properly and you can't read the image, you might have to take that to the bank as well. And then there's foreign currency. Some agencies receive Canadian checks or other foreign checks. Those would need to go to the bank as well with a deposit slip. Wells Fargo Bank does not take coin that is in foreign currency, but they do take paper foreign currency. On your deposit slips, you'll have three-part deposit slips. The white one always needs to go to the bank. The second and third one, we don't have a preference whether we receive the second or third one. What we just ask is that all agencies write their agency number in the section that says list each check, and then be sure to press hard enough so that we are able to read our copy as well as you're able to read your copy. We put a sample in here of the desktop deposit slips. As you can see on the top, you would list out your cash, coin, a total of any checks. We don't expect you to list out all the checks individually underneath those, just the total would be fine. But then under the section where it says list each check, that's where we've noted to put the agency account number, agency number in there. Even though we're giving each agency or most agencies their own account number, it's beneficial if we have any discrepancies with those deposits that we can see that agency number on there. And again, just a reminder to press hard enough so that we can see on that third copy. Plastic bag deposits are what Wells Fargo refers to as stagecoach deposits. It's a plastic bag that may be used by some agencies, but not all agencies. If you have a large volume of checks, we ask you to use those bags, but it's mainly for cash as well. If you're an agency that doesn't have a large volume of checks, but you do have cash and coin, we would ask that you use these plastic bags to put your cash in. We also ask that you do a second verification. Whoever it is that received the cash, have them total that up, put that in that plastic bag, hand that to someone else in their agency to do a verification that the cash that's there is what they said was there, and have them initial off on that. That's just a safety precaution for the agencies to make sure that the amount of cash that is leaving your agency is what was verified. And if something happens with that cash, then it's between, somewhere between getting to the bank and the bank. This is just a view of the top portion of the deposit bags. There is a place on top to where you can put the date of the deposit, the date you take it to the bank, the total deposit. That's usually where we have that second person verify with their initials that the amount matched. The number that's the 541177 number, that's something that you're going to want to retain that piece. It actually tears off. We usually just stick it on a white piece of paper and put it with our daily work. If there is a discrepancy with that deposit or the deposit goes missing, that's a tracking number that the Wells Fargo can use to find that deposit. The bottom section of the pouch is where you would place your checks, if you had any. When we're talking large volume of checks, we're looking at any volume over 20. So if you have 25 checks, you would place those checks in there along with the deposit slip. When you do that, even if you do not have checks and it's only cash, this is where you would place the deposit slip. The deposit slip is entered by the local branch. If they have time, they will take the checks out and run those checks as well through their scanner at the bank. The cash, though, however, is never counted at the bank. It goes down to Denver to a cash vault. If there's a large volume and the teller line does not have the manpower or the time to run those checks that are in there, the checks will also go down to Denver along with the cash to be processed. But the teller line needs to be able to get that deposit slip in order to run the total of the deposit and give the agency back a receipt. There are several ways to make a deposit at the bank. If you are using the plastic bags, which means you either have cash or you have more than 20 checks, we would ask that you take those inside the branch. Wells Fargo has a certain place at the downtown branch where you can take it into a side room and they will give you a receipt for that, so you don't have to stand in the teller line. If you have less than 20 checks and you would like to go through the drive up, that is fine as well. We do know that there are some branches throughout the state that, with the plastic bags for the cash, they're requiring agencies to not put those cash in those plastic bags. We are okay with that, but we do ask that the agencies still do some sort of double check on their side or dual verification before that cash leaves your agency. And then if you had loose cash and loose checks, you could go ahead and run those through the drive up. We do have an option, and we've alluded to it a little bit, which is this desktop scanning process. With the desktop scanner, it does like it just says, it sits on your desk. You can run these checks from there. You will have a scanner that's attached to a user ID. So anyone in your agency that would be scanning, we would need to make sure that they were set up on there. You turn the scanner on, you log into the system, and you run the checks through a little machine. At the end of running those through, it will ask you for a legal dollar amount. When you're double checking that dollar amount, you want to make sure that it's the handwritten dollar amount, not the dollar numbers that are on the side, as the bank takes the legal handwritten amount as the legal tender. You also want to make sure that you can read the images that are on there. If you have a check that you cannot read, chances are by the time it gets submitted to Wells Fargo, they're not going to be able to read that either, and it'll be kicked back as a deposit correction. So that may be one of those checks that you might have to pull out and manually take to the bank. Once you have your deposit total submitted in there, you can submit the deposit and run reports. It goes immediately to the bank. So if we have a snow day and you're trying to take a deposit physically to the bank, you may be able to get it to Wells Fargo, but they may close the road between here and Denver, and it may not get to Denver that way, whereas you won't get credit for that deposit until the next day. Whereas if you have a desktop scanner, regardless of the weather outside, that money is going to go that day that you deposit it. For processing of that for desktop scanners, we just ask that you send our office a WOLFS 101 and the CR header page to STO deposits. That is the current process, and that is still going to remain the process through July 1. This is a confirmation sheet that you're going to get for the desktop deposits once you deposit them in Wells Fargo. You can print a report that will show you the confirmation number. There's a place where you can name your deposits. You can name that anything that you want to. However, it does not take special characters, just numbers and letters. You can see on here it has the number, the amount of the deposit, the effective date, the number of items that were in the deposit, and who the deposit was created by and deposited by. The reason that we have that on there is most agencies, ours is one of them, if you're scanning the deposit and you're creating it, you're usually the one who's going to hit the submit button and submit that to the bank. We do have some agencies, when you go in to scan your deposit, it asks for a control total. We've asked those agencies not to put in that control total. If you're the person creating the deposit, you'll go ahead and scan your checks. You'll notify the person who's going to be the deposited by that has happened. They will go in and put in the control total. They'll verify what has been deposited, and then they can deposit it. So you'll see those two names showing up on there. What we do in our office is, with a copy of the deposit confirmation, is we keep that with the physical checks. The physical checks are not going to be going anywhere. They're going to be staying in your office. So we ask that once you have those scanned and deposited, you just make notification on there, which we do with our deposit confirmation slip, that those have been deposited. We ask that you keep those anywhere between 2 and 4 weeks, mainly because of returned items, which we'll talk about later. The Wells Fargo only requires that you keep them for 7 days, but we found with returned items that may be this 2 to 4 week time period. If you were to get a returned item, you need the physical check in order to be able to redeposit that returned item, and you would have that physical check within your location if you have not shredded that yet. So that's where we ask for you to keep those. Once that time period has gone and we don't view any returned items coming back, then we ask that the agencies go ahead and shred those checks, so there is not the fear of those being redeposited. Desktop scanner requirements, these do need to be hooked up to your computer. We ask that you have an IT person handy to assist with this. We know some agencies have to set that up as they don't have their own IT person. It's actually a fairly easy setup. The users who are going to be using the desktop scanners need to have a login provided to them by our office prior to setting up the desktop scanner. We do have a listing of system requirements in your packet. Some IT people, like I said, it's a pretty easy process. If you have your user ID and login, and then have the IT person there and the scanner to be able to recognize those drivers, that can be set up. We do know that some IT people like to have a Wells Fargo IT person on hand when they're setting that up. If you would contact our office and just let us know when you're going to be setting that up, we can arrange to have an IT person from Wells Fargo on the phone with you. We do that just for a couple of reasons, because we're the contract with Wells Fargo. We like to make sure that if you guys are having any issues with that we're in the loop so that we don't happen to hear about it after the fact. If you don't have a desktop scanner and you're interested in a desktop scanner, please have a supervisor send an email to STO Deposits with the subject line of scanner. We have had, when we re-upped with Wells Fargo, they did give us scanners. With the interest that we've had, those have gone. We are working with Wells Fargo to see if we can't provide scanners to other agencies, but if you are interested in that, please let us know and we'll work with you to see about getting a scanner. After today's session, we're going to have up on our website under Treasurer's Office, Finance, State Agencies, where you'll have a link on there to where you can go ahead and click on User Access, where you can request us to set up users to have that access. We decided to wait till after the last session to get that set up. We know that we've had in the past where people have emailed STO deposits to get users set up, but we think with the volume that we might have, it would just be easier if you would please go to the website and request that access, and then we'll get back to you and let you know when that's been set up. The last type of deposit is electronic deposits. For electronic deposits, the Treasurer's Office honestly is kind of blind as to agencies that have been given account numbers and ABA numbers to their vendors in order to have them pay electronically. So we will be able to assist you if we can, but we do feel that this is one of the places where it is going to be the agency's responsibility to contact those vendors and let them know that there has been a change to your bank account. Like I said earlier, we tried really hard if we knew that agencies had electronic deposits not to change those account numbers, but in some instances that did have to happen. So if that's the case and you need assistance, please let us know. Those are going to be for ACHs and credit cards. The reason we've lumped ACHs and credit cards is if you do have a credit card processing machine, when those get batched together and come over to the bank, they look like ACH deposits. They're not really referenced to credit cards, and then wires just come in separately. The next section is a deposit workflow. This was where I talked about a little earlier where timing is going to come into play. This process we do not want to start till after July 1. So we wanted to just reiterate that. So we do have a couple of processes, like I said, so between now and July 1, if you want to get a desktop scanner, if you want to start going to the bank, if you want to start utilizing your new bank account, we are encouraging that because we would like that to be switched over by July 1. This day 1, day 2, day processing that we're going to show you, actually we are not going to implement till after July 1. This has to do with the bank can have a ZBA product to where the money can automatically flow into our account at the end of the business day, where we don't have to go in and do those manual transfers, but it is a little bit of a change on the agency's reporting side. On the first day, the money will be taken to the bank, and so that's where we ask the agencies to either physically take their money to the bank or do a desktop deposit. Currently, right now, the cutoff time is noon, and we are going to allow those deposits to be taken to the bank by 2. We thought about extending that a little longer, but we do need to give the bank time to process those deposits that are taken to the bank so that they can meet their courier cutoffs. So it will be a 2 o'clock deadline, but that's a couple hours longer than you have right now. A WOLFS 101 will be created that same day, and also you'll enter a CR document into WOLFS, and that information will be scanned to the Treasurer's Office. Electronic deposits usually will come in also on day 1, and that's where we have the day 1, day 2 processing. Currently, some agencies have an intraday report. The cost of giving all agencies access to that intraday report just didn't seem feasible. So we are able to give everybody access to a prior day report that won't cost the agencies on those. So on day 2, when you come in, what you're going to be able to see is when you download that previous day report, you should be able to verify all of your bank deposits and desktop deposits that were taken to the bank the previous day. You should already have the CR document and the WOLFS 101 entered into the system. So you're really just verifying that that money's there and not having to do anything else. You will see, though, on that previous day report, any ACHs and wires that happened that previous day. That's going to be in lieu of you getting an email from the Treasurer's Office stating that you had money deposited into your account. At that time, we ask that you prepare a WOLFS 101 and a CR document for those electronic deposits and get that sent over to the Treasurer's Office. We do ask that all WOLFS 101 and CR documents be to our office by noon that next day. Utilizing Wells Fargo CEO website, agencies will be able to download reports I alluded to this just a little bit. We're going to give agencies access to a previous day composite report, which will show all activity for your account, and also a previous day returned item report. Should you have any returned items that hit your account, you would be able to see those right away. We decided to include in here transaction types on the bank reports. We refer to bank reports, like we've said, desktop deposits and bank deposits. When you see those come across on your previous day composite report, it's going to show as a commercial deposit. If you have ACH and credit cards that you've received into your account, those are going to show up as miscellaneous ACH credits. If for some reason you have an ACH that has been returned, and sometimes we have returned credit cards or we have negative credit card payments for fees, you would see those showing up as a miscellaneous ACH debit. Also on the report is going to be wires. Incoming wires would be wires that are coming in from any of your vendors that you have given them your bank account information to have them post money into your account that same day. Any outgoing wires are going to be generated either automatically from the bank, which is this zero balance account process, or we refer to it as ZBA. That's going to be happening starting July 1, where we're going to have accounts automatically swept into the treasurer's office account. So you'll see a ZBA notification on those accounts. Or you can either, in the interim, see what's called a manual book transfer. It's going to show up under your wires as a book transfer. And that's usually something that the treasurer's office manually did. When there is a book transfer, it can only go from a treasurer's office account to a treasurer's office account. So it's not any money going outside of our agency. If you happen to see any wires, though, that are going out that are not ZBA'd to a treasurer's office account or not book transferred to a treasurer's office account, that's when we do ask you to pick up the phone and call Jody or call Alice in our office, and they'll be able to help you track down where that money is going. All of our accounts do have a debit block on those, and so there are exceptions to debit blocks, but we try and lock those down as tight as we can. On this page that I pulled up is just an example of a previous day composite report for what you will see. On the top, it has total adjustment credits, total deposits, total ZBAs. As you can see on here, the amount that was deposited was the amount that ZBA'd. That should be normal within those accounts. I'll show you in a couple pages here, though, where there's a deposit correction. We ask that whatever the amount of the deposit is that you sent to the bank is what you code on your CR document and your WOLFS 101. If you're looking at your previous day report and those items are different, we don't want you to use the net amount because we want those deposit corrections separately. As you can see on here, it just had a float adjustment, which was 0, and then there's a commercial deposit that showed the amount. This is just another previous day composite report, but we pulled a different account that had ACH credits that came in and also an incoming wire transfer. So you can see those two amounts and how they show up on this previous day report. On here in the middle, if you look, there was a total ACH debit for $3,663. That indicates that they probably had a deposit correction. This is the previous day detail report. For this report, as we get later into the presentation, when we talk about a returned item process change, just want you to kind of keep this page in mind. It mainly the section where it says the $44. As you'll know, that's a blue item. That means that you can click on there and you can see the image of that deposit and who that deposit was from. You'll get to see an image of the check. We can't deposit off of images of checks. We do have to wait for the physical item to come back in the mail if it was taken to the bank, or if this was a deposit that had been desktop scanned, you would be able to go into your locked area where you had those scanned items and pull that image to be redeposited. That's why we ask you to keep those 2 to 4 weeks. On here, you'll see where it says disposition is chargeback. That means that that money was returned and the money was pulled out of our account. So that'll just be something to just keep in mind later as we talk about the change to the process. I alluded a little bit to deposit corrections. deposit corrections will appear on the previous day composite report. Deposit corrections can either be a miscellaneous debit or a miscellaneous credit, depending on how that happens. We all know that we make mistakes and fat finger things, but we also know that Wells Fargo is not perfect and that they can also do the same thing. So that's why we ask, if you have a deposit that you've deposited, we want your CR and your WOLFS 101 to match that deposit that was made. Then on your previous day composite report, if you notice on this example that there was a $10 miscellaneous debit, if you notice that there's that debit and you're expecting that debit to happen, that's when we would ask that you send a negative CR to our office just to help clear off that deposit correction. If it's something though where you need more information for that deposit correction, that's when we ask that you send an email to STO Deposits, and we will try and contact the bank to provide you more information. We do not want though at that time, if you're not sure, to have that CR processed as a net figure. It just makes it harder if we have to reverse that out if it's lumped in with your actual deposit. This is just kind of alluding to what I just said on here. So once we start the ZBA process in July, those might be netted with the figure. We are asking that your WOLFS 101 and your CR is for the deposits, and that you have a separate figure for your deposit correction. And then that's our address for the STO Deposits. Here, what I'll try and do is I'm going to change the screen just a little bit. I wanted to show you for Wells Fargo CEO just how easy it is to get into those accounts if you haven't done that before. So for all state agencies that have access to CEO and have access to our accounts under CEO, our company ID will always be WYOM002. Once you have a supervisor submit to our website that you need access to your account, we will go ahead and set you up with a user ID, and then you will get a confirmation email from Wells Fargo with your password in it. As you can see on there, it's just the company ID, user ID, and password. You should be able to get in here and see that we have access to desktop deposits and then also treasury information reporting. Those will be the two things that you will have access to. When I click on desktop deposits here, if I try and make a desktop deposit and show you guys how that works, that is not going to happen right now because I don't have a scanner set up. We actually are looking at having a training video that will be put out on our website that will show you how to go through the steps of making a desktop deposit. So we're hoping to have that out here in the next couple of months. On here, if you were having a scanner that was set up on the system, you would go into this little button to where it says create a deposit. Once you go into that create a deposit button, that's where that control total is going to be, where you'll have the total of the control of the deposits that you have. If you're someone in an agency that wants dual control on that, you would just leave that field blank. Then that's when you're going to name your deposit, pick your effective date, which usually is today, and then start scanning your deposits. Once the deposit is done scanning, that's when you'll have the opportunity to review any items that you need to verify Microline dollar amount or the quality of the image before you submit those. You'll also have access from this screen to go ahead and run reports, and that's where you would get that confirmation report that we showed you at the beginning for the desktop scanner. Treasury information reporting is where you're going to go to get your previous day composite report and also your previous day returned item report. Right now on here for the demo, we just have the previous day composite report set up. We only have one account that's selected. Most agencies are only going to have one account. We may have agencies, if you share scanners or if you happen to have multiple accounts, you may have two accounts in there. As you can see on here, everything, once I clicked on it, was already set up. Previous day composite, my account selected. I want to run this for yesterday. All I need to do is click the run button. And then down here, when I open this up, it'll give me a view of the previous day composite report. So as you can see on here, we have, this is the agency's direct account. It shows us the total number of deposits that we've had in that account, and which is 20, and it also shows me that there was one. This account is already set up on ZBA, and it had one ZBA going out. So that's where you'll either see total ZBA or you would see a total wire debit, and that would be if we did a book transfer out of that account. In this case, the total amount that was deposited matches the total amount that was ZBA'd, so we would know that there's no deposit corrections in this account thus far. As you can see on here, it says commercial deposit, and it will tell you if there's any deposits that came in there from sub-accounts. That's something to look at on our side, but for you agencies that are going to have your own accounts, it would just show a commercial deposit coming in from your account. I just wanted to show you just the ease of running that report. Like I said, the Wells Fargo website is pretty user-friendly. We just need to make sure that we have a supervisor from your agency contact us so that we can get you access to that. Go ahead and sign off real quick, and then I'll go back to the PowerPoint. Like I said, we're probably going to be only running about an hour, if not shy of that. We did have several questions and stuff at our live meetings. So please, again, don't hesitate to ask a question in the comment section, or if you want to send one to, us later, that would be fine. This is another part of the process that we're looking at changing, is this WOLFS 101 document. And this will be out there as of July 1 changes. I think we have this out there. Agencies will need to create, of course, a WOLFS 101 and a CR with their listing for the previous day composite. On here, we've just made some slight changes. On the old form, we had cash, coin, checks. We don't really need to know that information anymore. We need to know that information when you guys are bringing checks directly to us so that we knew how to account for those. But if you're taking the deposit to the bank or you're doing a desktop deposit, we don't necessarily need to know what that deposit was made up of. We just need the total of that deposit. So that's where we've changed this to say bank, took to the bank, desktop deposits, electronic. We've alluded to that ACH and credit cards show up in the same area. Wires show up a little different. And then if you were using this form to run through a deposit correction. One thing that we are asking agencies is that we would like the WOLFS 101 and the CR document ID to match. This is going to be part of the process that we're looking at doing with the September or early fall rollout of the website, when we have this information keyed into the State Treasurer's Office website instead of the WOLFS 101 form. We're trying as part of that to do an automatic reconciliation. We get 100 to 150 documents across our desk each day for all of the state's deposits that have happened, and it just takes a lot of time to go through and manually reconcile those. So as part of this process, the Treasurer's Office is looking for some automated efficiencies. One way that the agencies can help us do that is by making sure that your document number on your WOLFS 101 matches exactly to what the CR document is in WOLFS. We know that the max characters in WOLFS is 20 characters, and it does allow alphanumeric and special characters. We know that some agencies do not utilize all 20 characters, and that some agencies may have special characters actually in their naming convention of their WOLFS document. That is fine. All that we're asking is that whatever you've put on WOLFS matches exactly what you've put on the WOLFS 101. We do know that there is the capability to copy and paste that document ID. So we're hoping that that's just an easy fix to whereas if the agency is after you've created your CR document, if you would just copy and paste that information into that WOLFS 101 so that we can match that up exactly. Also, there's a bank deposit date that's on the WOLFS 101. That's just going to be, like we've alluded to before, the date that the money was taken to the bank or the date that the money was placed into your account at the bank, whether it was physically taken to the bank through the drive up or inside, if you did a desktop scanner, or if you had an electronic deposit. When we run our bank reports previous day, we're going to be looking at that bank date to see what date that money was taken to the bank, and also try and utilize that for an automated reconciliation process. So we just want to make sure that those are the same date. This is just a sample of the slight changes to the WOLFS 101 form. We've made slight changes to the WOLFS 101 form, and you can start utilizing that now. We will have that out there available for you. It's just to kind of gear you up. This is essentially all of the information that it's going to be asking for once we go to the website version in September. So we just wanted to make that transition a little easier. On here you can see that it just went to almost a half a page. Currently we are asking for the CR header page from WOLFS. Once we go to the website system, we are still in the phases of trying to decide if we need that CR header page. It's going to be in WOLFS to where we can pull that up as long as the information is exact on what is being entered in on the state's website, new website coming in the fall. So we will let you know, and we'll have another training, and in that training we'll let you know if we need the WOLFS header form. But what we were thinking for here is, instead of printing 2 documents and sending them to us or scanning separate documents, we do know that there's a way you can copy and paste just the screenshot of that header page into this WOLFS 101 form, and you could send that over to us as well instead of the multiple pages. This is just a little housekeeping. Some of this stuff, like we said, I've kind of reiterated, but just wanted to go over it. The WOLFS 101, we want to make sure that the date the money was deposited matches the date that it was in the bank. The document ID on the WOLFS 101, we would like agencies to make sure that that matches the CR document in WOLFS. Deposits going to the bank can happen starting, until 2 o'clock. This is in order to ensure that the bank can get that processed current day for you. And like I just kind of alluded to, the WOLFS 101 CR header deposit slips or the desktop deposit backup, we do currently want that sent over to the state treasurer's office by noon, but that could be one of those things that we would be following. Again, on some of these processing things, these are going to be happening after July 1. After today's meeting, either later this afternoon or sometime tomorrow, we are going to have out on the state treasurer's website. If you go to the state treasurer's website, click on the finance button on top, and then there's a button that says state agencies. We are going to have on there a link to a Google Doc to where you can log in there and let us know if you need deposit slips or if you need plastic bags reordered. We should, like I said in the beginning, we did give these to some of the agencies. Hopefully you have these. If you do need to reorder those, we would like you to use this process just so that we can keep up on the volume and that we make sure that we have just someone monitoring this versus it going to separate emails. For agencies to-do list, we're hoping that your main to-do list would be to contact your vendors if you needed to switch over your account number or your ABA number. Like I alluded to before, we've tried really hard, if we knew that you had a lot of vendors that were sending you electronic payments, to not change your account number. We do know that this may have happened for some agencies. If you're an agency that has Elavon for your credit card scanner, we are asking that you do contact them as well as one of your vendors in there. We need you to contact the treasurer's office as well if you're needing access, or if you're having one of your employees that needs access to our account. Again, under that same place to where you can order forms, if you go to the treasurer's office, click on the finance button and state agencies, we will have a link on there to where you can request access for your personnel. We would like supervisors to request this access. That way your agency and your agency supervisors know who's accessing the account, and then that way that's kind of our authorization to make sure that your agency is okay with that access being granted. Our to-do list is going to be to get that access set up as quickly as possible for you. We are going to also be the ones that are going to be responsible if you currently have a desktop scanner and your account number is changing. We are going to be pointing those desktop scanners to a new direction, but we do need you to contact our agency and let us know when you're wanting to start utilizing that so that we can point those scanners in the right direction. Distribution of deposit supplies to agencies. If you go on and use that Google form and request those supplies, our agency will get that to you. Assisting agencies with any issues. Again, this is just a contract issue between the State Treasurer's Office and Wells Fargo. Since we are the ones that have this contract, if you're having a problem with a scanner, if you're having a problem with a teller, if you're having a problem with just a local branch in general, we ask that you contact us. We have a group that is dedicated to the State Treasurer's Office, and we have, direct phone numbers. We have about, I think it's a 5-person team that is dedicated to us. It's a lot easier if you loop us in the beginning and we can talk to our contact at the bank, and then our contact at the bank can then in turn talk to the local teller line or the local branch, or just internal if we have any problems, just to alleviate some of those issues. It's a lot better that way than us finding out kind of after the fact that there was an issue that maybe we could have taken care of a little bit quicker. As I've alluded to, there's some upcoming news. The Treasurer's Office is currently working on the new automated process of Phase 2. I've alluded to that a couple times, and this will be happening in early fall. We're hoping to do another training session to where we can show you what that website's going to look like. The website will have logins and IDs for your agency, so they will be separate logins and IDs from the Wells Fargo login and IDs. And really what that would be is it would replace the WOLFS 101 document, and we would have you be entering in that information just into a website portal. That way we can capture that information, and then there may be some report capabilities on there. So we'll keep you in the loop. We're in the very early stages of developing that, and so we're not quite sure of all the capabilities of that until later in the summer. One thing that we would like you to look at, and this will be coming in the survey that we send out, is a change to your returned item processing. We're considering changing this just to be quicker and more efficient. Right now the process is way too slow. Currently, if we have a returned item, that returned item is sent to the Treasurer's Office after first presentment. The Treasurer's Office has to do some documentation on that. We send it up to the State Auditor's Office to where they process an RE document, and they notify your agency that there's been a returned item, and then you can start collecting on that. As we alluded to before, it's a first time NSF that it comes back to us. We have to wait for that paper item. That paper item can either get halted up at Wells Fargo, it can get halted up at the mail. Since we're at 2020 carry, sometimes we're not quite sure where those go before they come to us. Once we get those, then we can send it up to the auditor's office and start that RE documentation process. This could take anywhere between 2 and 4 weeks. It takes a long time to get that done. If you're an agency that's needing to hold licenses or some sort of registration fee or something, that can be problematic. So we're trying to speed up this process a little bit, and also the amount of people who touch this processing. If you are an agency that has scanners and you're using the desktop scanners, this is where I alluded to before. Once you get notification that an item has been returned, you have the physical item in your shop if you haven't already shredded it, and you could use that to do the redeposit. But mostly those checks are going to be coming from the bank. What we're wanting to do is, after it gets returned the first time from the bank, we want our bank to redeposit that. So if you can remember the page that I had back where I said to remember the disposition and it said chargeback, if it gets returned the first time, you will be able to run a previous day returned item report, and that disposition on there would say redeposit. That's going to let you know that there was a problem with this check clearing, that it has been redeposited for second presentment. But if you do have some sort of certification or something that you need to hold, you would be able to hold that based on this documentation. The next day when you go in, if that redeposited item on the returned item report says that it's settled, you don't have to do anything. There's not going to be a CR, there's not going to be an RE, you're not going to have to contact that person and have them give you a new check. If it says that it is settled, that means that the bank got the money and there's nothing for you to do. We learned, and I have a question in here for the live audience, was that, does anyone know the percentage of return items that get paid upon redeposit? 87%. 87% of the time, if we would allow the bank to redeposit it, it's going to get cleared, and we're not going to have to go through the RE documentation process. So we are hoping, and like I said, this is going to be a survey question, we're leaning towards wanting to change this return item process, but wanted the agencies to be able to weigh in just in case we were missing something that might change that decision. However, once the item is redeposited, if it comes back settled, everybody's happy. If it comes back and it shows that chargeback again, though, we are going to have to go through the old process to where we're going to have to wait for the item to come to us in the mail, or you're going to have to go look in your desktop deposit stash and see if you have that check there. That would, either way, that would still need to come to the treasurer's office so we can process it. Once we process it, we'll send it up to SAO for them to do an RE document. And then once you have collected the money on that by either redepositing it or getting a new check from whoever the person was that was paying you, that's when you would have to do the CR and reference the RE to get that cleared. So there will still be that process, but we're hoping that with 87% of these clearing on the first or settling on the second presentment, that only 10% of the time we'll have to go through this old return item process. So we just want your thoughts, comments, and concerns on that, and we'll have you do that when we do this, when we send you out the survey at the end of this presentation. So this is concluding our presentation. So just like I had said, we are going to send you out a survey. It'll ask you how we've done on this. And don't know if I alluded to on this one, but I did in the live presentations. Since I've worked in the treasurer's office 14 years, this is the first live presentation that we have ever done, and I know that this is the first YouTube presentation that we've ever done. So wanted to thank you for being with us today. I hope we did an okay job. Just wanted to reiterate a couple of dates again for you before we close. Starting now, if you would like to start using your new bank account, please notify STO Deposits, and that can happen anywhere between now and July 1st, that you can start utilizing those new deposits. You can start getting your vendors switched over. The sooner we do that, I think that that would be better for everyone. Starting on July 1, that's when we're going to be implementing the ZBA processing. We're also going to be implementing the 1- and 2-day workflow processing, and we are going to, and that's where we're going to be implementing that. Then starting in, like I said, in September, and we'll have our second presentation for phase 2 at that time, where we will be going over the changes to the CR document and how we want that to be implemented via our website versus the new form. So we hope that you guys enjoyed this. This is just a little recap that we had of everything that we went over. Like I said, if you're logged into our system and you registered for this class, we will be sending out a survey for you to follow up on. For the live session, this is where we did the Q&As, but we do have, like I said, our comment session open, and we'll have that open for a little while longer if you guys want to comment on that. And then we just hope that you have a good afternoon, and thank you for joining us.